Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
Welcome to the Double D's podcast, which is part of the Hammercast network. I am your host, Kevin Coleman, and on this episode of the podcast, we have special guest, Corey P., who is a contributor for the BreakoutFinder.com, a team member for the Devy Dashboard, which is a fantastic resource for everybody out there, and the co-host of the Devy Dispensary. Corey is someone who I trust immensely in this space. He's one of the hardest workers. He's someone that I stole all his stuff last year before I even was an analyst. Like, I looked at his guys that he liked, and I definitely drafted him in my leagues. I appreciate him coming on. So, Corey, thanks for coming on. And why don't you tell our listeners like some work that you've been doing? You've been a busy man, so there's a lot of stuff out there.
Thanks, Kev. You know, I'm really appreciative of you having me on here. You know, it was a nice introduction of you. You know, I'm relatively new to a lot of this video podcasting stuff, especially being live. So hopefully I don't make a complete ass of myself here, you know, and I'm pumped to be here. So I'm pumped to take a look at this 21 wide receiver class, especially now that we've got some verified numbers to look at. Well, kind of verified, I guess. But I've loved your podcast. You've been doing great work on this podcast. You know, the article work you dabble in, your Twitter interactions. I mean, I've always respected your part of it too, and I feel like we've always kind of connected. So, yeah, you know, you've really been grinding it out there, and it shows on the things you put out. But on my side of things, you know, unfortunately, I've been super busy with a 5-month-old. I haven't been able to kind of contribute as much as I would like. But you did mention the Devy Dashboard, and I did just join the Dashboard with Brandon Lejeune, who does great work. His podcast, the Devy Deep Dive, you know. We're really trying to make it like a one-stop shop for Devy, right? It's going to have everything you want, whether it's the film, it's the metrics, it's the scouting reports, it's the team report, it's going to have vacated production, it's going to have your coaching changes, and then even the community is super good. You know, you can go talk with people, create leagues with each other, mock drafts. I mean, you're part of it. You know the kind of the good community we got going out there. And you know, my fellow Breakout Finder writer Britt Sanders has kind of joined the team there too as the metrics half. But yeah, unfortunately, the Breakout Finder stuff, article work has taken a back seat. I haven't been able to do as much as I would like, but they are producing some great content over there, and they're always trying to find you the next breakout. So you know, make sure you guys get over there and check it out.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, like Corey talked about, Devy Dashboard is huge. Breakout Finder is a guy. That's the reason why I have Jordan Addison in all my teams. I tell everybody that because I was looking for him, and those are all good things. And that's why I wanted to bring Corey on. Corey's a great resource. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the standard wide receiver process. We just went over running backs this last podcast, so if you're listening and if you missed it, we did running backs. Now we're at wide receivers. I like to wait until we have all the measurables. And even though it looks like I could run a 40 in these 40 days and these pro days that we have out here, my fat ass, I know that we're going to take these with a grain of salt, but we're looking at wide receivers now. So we're going to break down the 2021 rookie wide receiver breakdown. And there's a lot of hot takes and there's a lot of things out there, but I wanted to go someone I trust, someone that I know knows these guys. So the first thing I want to talk about is your evaluation process. So are you a film guy, analytics guy? These guys are about to kill each other right now on every social media platform out here. Do you use both? Where are you at?
So I am kind of in the middle ground of them both, so that way I can be on both sides, you know, so I don't get picked at too hard. I kind of stay neutral, you know. But I actually did spend some time. I went back over this last offseason actually to really kind of understand the analytics more. Learn the formulas, learn how they correlate, learn how things are. You know, I picked the minds of some of the best guys. Jarek Backus, the guy who's doing some great work at Campus Acan. Our guy on the dashboard, Britt Sanders. You know, and just going back and forth with these guys and figuring out how things go and figuring out how I can kind of include it in my process, because I'm not 100% there yet with including it. I know it. I know the numbers. I study it. I haven't really it's maybe a tiebreaker for me at times, you know, but first and foremost, I really am a film guy, you know, and I know this because when I'm arguing prospects with people, I'm not one to mention dominator rating. I'm not going to tell you when his breakout age was, you know, I'm telling you what I see on film. That's how I debate. So I think first and foremost, I am a film guy.
Yeah, no, I think this is why you and me actually work well together, and I enjoy it because I'm a film guy too, and I could tell you were a film guy without even asking you by looking at your rankings. When you sent me your rankings, I'm like, me and this guy, we know it. We're film guys. I'm not going to hear a bunch of Jarek Backus bombs out here yelling at me over all the dominator ratings. So
they'll get after us after.
Yeah, I mean, I try to look at analytics, right? Like I do. I'm just not. I'm not there yet. I'm studying like you and learning, but I do think film for me matters a little bit more. When we look at measurables, what are you looking for in wide receiver prospects? Are there any efficiency metrics that you place high on others? I know you said you were kind of learning, so are there any two things that you look for?
When looking at the measurables of a wide receiver, I kind of really think that this is the beauty of being a film guy. I really do think every case is different. You know what I mean? Like if you can show me that you can win without size, like a Tyreek Hill, or if you can show me that you can win without speed, like a Keenan Allen, then I'm not gonna throw it away because you don't hit some arbitrary threshold that I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Do I prefer to see like some size in my wide receivers? Of course, I don't necessarily want them looking like Devante Smith and Deshaun Jackson. You know what I mean? Do I want them fast? Yeah, I do want them fast. But these are all things you kind of bake into the kind of player. You know what you're getting. I will say that on the testing side, that I do kind of like to see agility testing more so, and explosion more than that raw 40 time. So, your 3-cone, your shuttle, your broad, your vert. I think those things kind of have a direct correlation to the NFL, whether it's in your release, your ability to gain separation, speed in and out of your cuts, your overall route running, and that's what NFL evaluators are looking for nowadays is separation. You don't see a big demand for guys who aren't getting separation anymore. So yeah, I like to see quick feet in my wide receivers. That's one of the things that I'm pretty big on.
Yeah, I put on here release and route running. So for me, that's number one. So when I'm watching a guy, how do they do against press coverage? And I think one thing that I talked about, even with Ben Evie of Destination Devy, he talked about it too with release, especially even from young players. Like when we're looking at like what freshmen do we really like coming out into NCAA, I look at their release. How good is that? Because pure speed will work in high school. Pure speed will work in college to an extent too. Release is totally different mindset. Like it's not Henry Ruggs out here running straight. Like there's a lot of different things go there. What do you look for with release and route running? Are you looking at separation? Are you looking at how fast they get off the line, press coverage, everything?
Yeah, I like to see these guys, and unfortunately in college you don't see it a lot, is I like to see these guys kind of facing press coverage. I like to see these guys on tight coverage. Unfortunately you aren't seeing it, but yeah, I like to see guys with quick feet, like I said, guys who can kind of just deceive you at the line. I don't necessarily want to see someone who's just going to run right into somebody or somebody who can hold you at the line, when they initiate contact, make sure you can't move. A lot of it is timing. The quarterback is relying you to be at a certain spot at a certain time. So you got to be able to get out of your spot in line quickly and get to that spot, or else everybody could be in trouble. The play could break down. So separation really starts at the beginning of a play at the release. So it's a vital part of the NFL. And route running is too. It is a big part, but I do think that the release I do hold a little bit higher. I think route running can be kind of refined on the next level. I even kind of think of DK Metcalf, who's somebody who I think has some pretty violent, aggressive releases, can really get off the line really well, but is maybe not the best guy at running routes, maybe not the most diverse guy, isn't the most lateral, you know what I mean? So I think that you can win, and it can kind of be learned at the next level a little bit more.
No, I think that's fair. God, sometimes I watch DK Metcalf, I brought him up. He's just a violent player. Like his athleticism, right? Like his athleticism just takes over for him out there. I do like the release route running stuff. The ball skills and hands, I think that's important. They got to be able to catch. But it'd be interesting. I'd be interested to hear what you said. So somebody brought this up to me today, and I didn't really have time to look. Are you that concerned with drops, or is it more of a quarterback? Maybe they play with bad quarterbacks and be worried about that? Because Terrace Marshall is one of those guys that dropped, I think, 10 balls last year, something more than what we looked at. Are you concerned with ball skills and hands, or do you think that maybe he has a combination between quarterback, wide receiver?
I think there is a lot of stuff that go into it. I think LSU was still kind of deciding on quarterback play. They were shuffling around, and it was kind of messy. I do think that has something to do with it. Another guy like Seth Williams, who had a couple of drops, but Bo Nix isn't very good. You know what even Rashad Bateman has quite a few drops, but I don't think Morgan was the best quarterback either. His ball placement was all over the place. So it all depends on what I'm seeing on film when it comes to the drop rate. I got to say, and we'll get into Rashad a little bit later because he did this a few times. But when I see a wide receiver and the ball hits him in the hands, I expect him to freaking make that catch. You know what I mean? Like, if it's crazy behind you, crazy in front of you, whatever. But if it hits you right in the hands and that's a pure drop, then I put that on the wide receiver. I don't like to necessarily see that. But at the same time, Terrence Marshall's in my top 5 here that we will talk about, and it hasn't deterred me really. It's been a problem that you've seen be correctable on the next level. So it's not something that I'm really putting too much weight on. But yeah, I guess I do like to see a wide receiver not have a crazy drop rate. So
I think there's a difference between Terrace Marshall's drops and like Tamarian Terry's from Florida State. Terry can't catch. Like there's a problem with Terry. There's something going on with Terry where he just lacks the ability to focus and catch. I'm staying away from Terry. He looks like a brick house, but there's something wrong with his hands. Whereas Marshall, there's a lot of things that kind of come play with that one. What else? Yak, athleticism. Is there anything else that kind of you feel like kind of measures? How do you see this on tape? Like, how do you look? What are you looking for when you watch tape?
Right. Like, I mean, I think it depends on the type of guy too. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, yak ability is nice to have. It's nice to know that I can give the guy the ball and him create easy yards for me, him pick up 5 yards when I need it, him pick up 7. If it only takes 2 seconds to get the ball out of my hands, I don't have to worry about pressure. I don't have to worry about none of that, you know. So that stuff is good. But I mean, you have cases like you have Mike Evans, and you have cases like you have DK Metcalf, and you have stuff like that. You know, they aren't the greatest yak artists, you know what I mean? But they still are some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So I mean, again, I hate to keep going back to it being on a case by case basis, but it really is. Depending on what you bring to the table trait wise, it is kind of a case by case basis on a lot of these things.
So the last one I had a question about before we get into your top 5 is, do you think college production matters? So if we're looking at raw stats and we're looking at guys like, we know Waddle got hurt, so his college production has gone down. There's some guys that really overproduce. Like, how do you fit that into your process?
Right. I mean, looking at raw numbers is always going to give you the wrong impression, I think. This is part of the analytics process kind of creeping into mine, is definitely I look at market share more. And I look at Dominator and what they were commanding as part of that offense, how better they were above their peers. You know, so I think it gives good context to the raw numbers. Because, I mean, you look at raw numbers, you go 400 yards. He didn't do shit all. But then you look at the rest of the guys who only caught 100 yards, and you realize this guy was the number one, part of a low-volume passing attack or something, you know. And there's been cases on either side, you know. And you can point to Nikhil Harry, who was one of the crazy productive in the NFL, can't do anything on the NFL, or crazy productive in college and can't really get going in the NFL, right? And then you can look at a guy like Terry McLaurin, who wasn't super productive in college and now is doing great things in the NFL. So it's hard to say. I don't really think that it purely matters. You'd like to see good production. Yeah, I'm still looking for market share. I'm still looking for that he's at least playing above his peers, that he's at least putting up good numbers in his own situation, you know. So yeah, I don't think that it truly matters. It's case by case. Every case is unique.
But as film guys, we know, though, because you want to say it, because I'm thinking it too. It's you see something, right? We know it. We watch them. Like, maybe the production's not there, but we see it on tape. There's something there that will make this guy special. Like, that's how I look at film sometimes, where I'm like, well, hey, he doesn't have that overly overt production. We're not seeing that 200 yards, 150 yards in college that we used to see, but there's something there that can translate well to that next level, like a Terry McLaurin, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
That's why I love Paris Campbell, but he can't stay healthy. But,
I have so many Paris Campbell shares, and I'm just waiting. And he had some glimpses last year. Okay, I'm still on this trade. If the guy could just stay healthy, and then maybe we could get something here. But
I'm still a Paris Campbell truther. I'm found one. It's like a unicorn out here. It's hard to find still. But
they're a dying breed. But
you
I'm
and
still
me
out here, man. Yeah,
we're planting our flag on this Paris Campbell island until we die. That's my guy. All right, let's go through your top 5 wide receivers. So what we're gonna look at, we're gonna start with number 5 with Corey's top 5, and we're gonna kind of go through here, and then hopefully if we have time at the end, we're going to go through some other guys. But the top 5 rookies, this class isn't interesting. I actually tweeted out a month or 2 ago. I said there's a lot more wide receivers 2s and 3s in this class than wide receiver 1s than we think, and I think that's kind of. Do you agree with that statement?
I do kind of. I struggle to find, I think, complete wide receivers in this class. Guys who are going to prototype as that number one. You know, you're finding elite slot guys. You're finding elite yak guys. You're finding guys with a lot of speed. You're finding guys with a lot of route run savvy, maybe aren't too big or maybe aren't whatever. You know, I think it's really missing complete guys, especially once we started getting some of these size numbers. And even Rashad Bateman isn't really that prototype size that you were kind of hoping for. But yeah, I mean, after Jamar Chase, who is really that prototype guy that brings everything to the table, you know, I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah, no, and I said that. I think that it's weird how that's kind of worked out, but I love Chase. Well, why don't you go through your number 5? Who is your number 5 wide receiver?
My number 5 wide receiver is going to be Terrace Marshall out of LSU. I really did struggle with trying to find a five. I do take a tier-based approach a lot of the times, trying to decide between guys. And I wanted to pick about who I wanted to talk about on the show. The guy I really wanted to get in here, though, was Amon-Ra. I am a big fan of Amon-Ra, and I think he is kind of being slept on a little bit. But I did go with Terrace Marshall, and I think essentially it's the upside, and it's the ceiling that he brings to the table. I mean, we're looking at a guy who's got 4.4 wheels. He's got the size you want. He's got the explosive testing. He's got the movement skills you want. So he prototypes as that number one, that potential number one on the next level that you're looking for. Is he polished as a Amon-Ra, or is he as polished as a Devante Smith? No, he's not really there. But he's got a lot of tools to work with, and I think the NFL is going to want to get his hands on him. I think he has some great footwork after the catch. He can make guys miss with his speed. He has a pretty good job picking up yak. So, he was schemed a lot of easy looks at LSU too, which is kind of weird for a guy with his size and his catch radius. You kind of expected maybe a lot more targets downfield, but his A dot was only 9.5 yards, something like that. And I guess more on the bad side, like we were talking about, he does have drops, which kind of concern me here and there. Like we say, we can kind of show a lot of it to quarterback play and stuff like that. But I also think there's the argument out there that Chase and Jefferson that he only broke out after Chase and Jefferson really kind of left the scene, right? But if you kind of go back to that year and you look at what he was doing on pace with those guys, I think through week 4, I think he had 300 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, something like that, and I think all 3 of them had that. So he was right there, and then he ended up hurting his foot in week 4. He ended up missing 4 or 5 games or something like that. He never really came back full strength. He did still muster up 13 touchdowns, which was nice to see in that year. But a lot of people hold that part against him, like it was his fault or something. And it's like I see a guy who got injured, couldn't really play up to, wasn't really comfortable coming back yet, and the production suffered for it. But I didn't really hold it against him. And then you saw this year him come in and be the clear alpha. So when you look at all of that with more context, I think there's a ton of upside there, and I came away feeling pretty positive with the production. He's super young. He's got a huge ceiling, and really he's one of the only guys in this class that I see with true alpha potential.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Terrace Marshall is my wide receiver 3, so I like him a little bit more. I mean, it's close, but I mean, I just like him for that potential. I think he's a versatile receiver. So the thing about him, they're going to be able to line him up, and he's 6'3", 205, and he's going to be able to line up in the slot on the outside. He's got the physical strength. He has the route running. He has that big playability as well, and he scores touchdowns. He scored 23 touchdowns in limited time at LSU, and he only played, obviously the 7 games last year. He played as we said, he got hurt the record-setting year, but he still put up numbers. Had he continued to play last year, I think that would have been fine. Right now in startups, he's going as basically the 204. So you can get him in the mid-second. That's incredible value. I think I would take him at the end of the first, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would definitely take him at the end of the first. And like I said, I think he's one of the true guys that we're looking for in fantasy. We're looking for that NFL wide receiver 1. A lot of these guys might be role players on the next level, but here's your one shot at a guy who's going to be potentially the number 1 guy for his team eventually, if he puts everything together.
Yeah, and I mean, and for someone like me, when I think of hey, am I going to take a risk on these guys? I would rather have Marshall than Devante Smith, depending on where he goes and where he falls in that draft. I think that Devante might be going a little higher than I would like than Terrace Marshall. I love Terrace though, so I know that I'm kind of like a fanboy of his, but I do think that he has that potential. He has the size, he has that release, he has everything that you really want to see. There's really nothing that you can say bad about him besides he did have some drop issues, but I think again that quarterback play at LSU was terrible. And then he also, when you looked at him too, he doesn't have the breakout kind of dominator rating that we like because he didn't finish the season last year, and in the year before he was hurt and playing with 2 of the best wide receivers in college football. So there is that, but I think the upside is there. That's kind of there. Who's your number 4? Because I love this. Let's get dive into this. Let's do it.
Right, like you just mentioned, right? So my number 4 is Devante Smith, who I do hold just slightly above Terrace here, and I mean, I think there's a few things with Devante Smith that I really like. I mean, we're going to get to his size at some point here. I'll get to that eventually. But let's start with the good, right? His hands is the number 1 best thing that I see when I'm watching Devante Smith. I don't think I saw him, cradle a ball. I don't think I saw him body catch. I don't think I saw anything, he always catches the ball away from his hand or away from his body. He's always extending for it. He's using every inch of that big wingspan that he's got. And say what you want about his play strength, okay? But I mean, you watch the Georgia game this year. These guys were playing him pretty tight on his hip. They were right on him, and he still had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or whatever. But they were hitting him hard after every play. They were contesting every catch, and surprisingly, this guy with his 170, maybe 160 frame, I don't even know at this point what he is, but he was holding through these big hits, carrying the ball to the ground, and I actually came away like fairly impressed. I mean, his play strength is the furthest thing from elite. But I mean, we can get into that too. I mean, even on the bubble screens and stuff that they use a lot of for him. They threw him on a lot of jet sweeps and stuff like that. I saw him not breaking initial contact very much. So I don't think that his play strength is necessarily elite, but I did find him like pretty impressive at the catch point and holding through that contact. Another thing that I do love with Devante is his releases. He didn't face a ton of it in 2020, but he did kind of take advantage when he could. He's explosive. He knows how to gain his leverage quickly. He knows where to go. He finishes it off with some great route running. He's a smooth strider. He's quick in and out of his breaks. He might even be one of the best polished route runners in this class, to be honest. And really, it's that polish that kind of puts him over Marshall for me, where I think Marshall kind of has some things to do. He's not as deceptive in his routes. He doesn't gain separation as easily, I guess. But
yeah.
But I mean, so if we're talking about Devante, we got to talk about his size, though. I mean, right? I mean, I did think the refusal to not get weighed anywhere through the process was kind of weird. Like, how did you feel about that?
That made me nervous, right? I mean, he's listed at what, 170, 175, depending on where he's at. The biggest thing with him is he's so small. He is just a small guy. Do you think he can get separation though? Do you think that's a positive in his game? Because I know some people point to that, but I have some questions about his ability to separate.
I did find that he could gain separation like pretty well, especially in his route running. Like, I found him to be a deceptive route runner. Okay. There was a couple of times where people played him tight, and I'm trying to think of a game where the one that you might have watched that you're talking about. I wish I had it on a note here, but where the guy actually did play him tight out of the slot, and he pretty much stayed in his hip pocket the entire route. Yeah, and like I did see instances of that. That's for sure. He did play a lot of zone coverage too, so maybe it gives a little bit of a wrong impression sometimes. Yeah. But I did think that he was deceptive in his footwork. Some of the outbreaking routes that he did, where he's getting his lean into one way and being able to divert the guy that way and gain his leverage on the outside. I did think that he did a lot of those good things. But yeah, I guess it's fair to wonder, and I guess it's fair to wonder the physicality at the next level. If these guys are going to allow him to do the things he wants to do, if the guys are going to allow him to get off the line, he's going to face a ton more press at the line at the NFL level with guys who are huge, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to do against that.
Well, I think like Sarkisian did a good job of moving him around, and so when you watch him, they did it with Waddle too. Then Waddle got hurt, so Smith, they did a good job of moving him around, so he didn't face that press. So he already kind of had that built-in separation, and they used a lot of double moves. So when you watch Alabama play, there was a lot of double moves that he used with not press coverage. So when I watch that, I get nervous. And it's not that I don't think he's a very good at separating, but I do think that he will struggle against bigger, better kind of corners and even safeties, and even guys that maybe won't bite on those double moves, especially because they can stay with them because they're more physical, push them off the route. I just get worried about that. I have a hard time with, does he really have that elite separation, or was he a very scheme? I don't want to say he's a scheme-dependent wide receiver. He won the Heisman, but so don't come at me. Don't come at me, Smith. Okay, I don't need to hear it. But I think they did an amazing job of elevating his strengths and limiting his weaknesses on that team. Sarkisian did an amazing job of it. Will they be able to do that at the next level? That's the one worry I have with just how small he is.
Yeah, right. And I guess people are saying that we have to kind of expect an outlier if you're kind of in Smith's pocket, right? You have to expect him to do something that nobody else has done. But I mean, there is kind of things that are already an outlier in his profile, though. You know what I mean? So I went and looked at a search or whatever. I went and looked back, and I tried to see guys with his height, guys with his weight, with expected round one draft capital. And I mean, there's nobody. And I mean, if you want to go with the closest guys that everybody likes to talk about, either Marvin Harrison, or some people like to point to Paul Richardson. Even Will Fuller is kind of close. But even then, you have to add 10 pounds to
Yeah.
Devante to even get to them. And who even knows if he's 170? I mean, if you're 170, step on a damn scale and show us. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard to do. So I do have questions if he even is that 170 with how thin those calves are out there. But yeah, he already is kind of a unicorn in this sense.
Yeah.
He's going to get day one draft capital. He's gonna be a 165 pound wide receiver with day one draft capital. So it's going to be an interesting case study and something for us to look back on if we should ever do this again, because I don't know if we're going to.
Oh, no. We'll get on here and just eat crow. We'll definitely do it if Devante Smith's not good. We will get on here and we will kill it. Is there a landing spot that you would get worried about or that you would like? I've seen all kinds of things, like the Eagles. I saw the Giants, maybe the Lions. Dolphins have been in there. Is there one that you're like, yeah, I want him to go to, or one that like, I don't know if I want him to go there?
I don't really have a perfect fit for him. What I will say is, I don't think I want to see him walk in and be a wide receiver one somewhere. Yeah. I'd like to see him be a complimentary receiver somewhere. See how he can be able to be moved all over the line right now. Be able to go in the slot. Be able to go on the outside if you're needed. Maybe he brings special teams prowess too with his kick returning and stuff like that, getting on the field. So I'd like to see him go to a place where there's already a bona fide wide receiver one in place, where he can kind of just complement that guy. Whether that's in Green Bay or whether that's in, I don't even know. I'm trying to think right now where there's only a one right now, but somewhere like that,
Yeah, it'll be tough because if it depends on where he goes. It's really going to depend on where he kind of lands. There's all those guys in that top 15. If he gets that high draft capital, he's going to be probably the wide receiver one. And so that's what makes me nervous. I don't want to see him go to the Lions. That would make me cry. It would make me cry if Jamar Chase went to the Lions. Like, it's going to make me F there. But, hey, I want you to help me because I got a trade offer today, and I'm glad I got it today. I'm so excited. So it's Devante Smith for DJ Chark. Who would you rather have?
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
It's tough.
Obviously, you expect a bigger production with DJ Chark now with Lawrence coming to town, right? And Lawrence loves his big wide receivers. So I mean, I'm pretty high on DJ Chark too. Like, I wouldn't take like a low pick for DJ Chark or anything like that in a rookie draft. I mean, would I take him where I would take Devante Smith? It's pretty freaking close. But right now, I think I have to go with the guaranteed production in DJ Chark, because they're just risk baked into Devante Smith right now. And I think maybe even on the hype scale, you can get something thrown in. I don't think you'll be able to, because I'm talking about it live on Twitter right now. But regardless, if you're in a different case in somewhere and anybody's listening and they're thinking that they like DJ Chark, when Devante goes in the first round of the NFL draft, maybe you should go out there and see if you can get DJ Chark plus for him,
Yeah.
But I do think that I like DJ Chark better in his current situation.
Yeah, I've been stressing about that all day. I actually like the deal, but I'm like, I think I'm going to try to add a pick to that just so I can get something back. But no, I mean, and for perspective, his super flex rookie ADP right now is 11. So he's basically wide receiver 2 back end. So he's a 111. Yeah. That's fair. I wouldn't mind actually taking Smith at that point. I just seen some people taking like 106, 107, 108, and that's too high for me. I'm not drafting there. So, all right. I think we bear a very good point. He could be a unicorn, but I'm not betting on unicorns. I get worried about betting on unicorns. I get a little nervous about that.
I hear you.
Who is your number 3?
Okay, so my number 3 is a guy by the name of Rashad Bateman. Very productive receiver for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Very quick, ran a nice 4.3940. That was pretty unexpected. I was a little bit surprised by the height. Obviously, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier, being 2 inches than he was listed. The weight actually didn't surprise me that much. Yeah. I think I talked about this in the chat on the Devy dashboard, but I remember an interview of him back in January where he was talking about how he played at 190. He had a battle with COVID that made him lose some weight. And then he was even talking about how he never really felt truly comfortable this year. Like, after his battle with COVID, he was never truly the same player until he got towards the end of the season. He got a little more comfortable, got his feet under him a little bit better. But and to me, it did kind of show on tape a little bit. If you watch some of 2020's tape compared to 2019, he did. I don't know if you want to call it lethargic, maybe not as crazy in his routes or not as diverse in his routes. And then other games he was putting it on full display. So maybe it was there a little bit. I did think the 19 tape looked better. But at the end of the day, I don't think any of it really changed much for me. Okay. I would have loved to see him with the bigger size. But I kind of thought of him differently to begin with. I never thought that he was going to be a big contested catch guy. Like, I mean, one of the best things that I love about Rashad Bateman is his footwork. And the way he's able to gain separation in his routes, I think he could possibly be the best route runner in this class. Like I really do, and like this is super lofty, and I don't like to say it. I do like comparisons. I don't care what anybody says. I like to make comparisons sometimes. But another wide receiver who's playing up Minnesota with the Minnesota Vikings, who's now catching balls from Josh Allen. Okay, I'm not saying he's Stephon Diggs. I'll stop right there. He's not Stephon Diggs. Okay, but his footwork in his route running really does remind me of Stephon Diggs sometimes. The way Stephon Diggs is able to gain separation and stuff like that. I mean, even some of the other traits, the yak ability, the deep ball prowess, the deep ball tracking, and it's really just the footwork, the way he gets DBs turned around and stuff like that in his route. And I mean, no one is quite Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is probably the best route runner in the NFL. I don't know if you agree with me, but he's probably like maybe number 1, maybe number 2, depending on what you want to say. But yeah, I mean, I see a lot of that in his game, and even the size now is more comparable, which makes more sense to me because that's kind of like the player I saw on tape already, you know. With Bateman though, like he does have some flags to his profile, like we were saying. Like I don't think anybody's really a complete receiver here. I mean, you turn on the Iowa tape from this year. It wasn't the greatest game. I think Golden Gopher fans would love to forget this game anyways. I think it was a 48 to nothing or 7 blowout. Where they didn't do much. I think he even got the late touchdown late in the game. But man, I'm telling you, he had 3 balls hit him right in the hands, on a couple in crossers. And I mean, I know Morgan doesn't do him any favors. His ball placement was all over the place. It was high. It was away from him. It was behind him. But these things hit him right in the hands. And I mean, it's not even a small just that game. He had another drop against Purdue. He had some drops last year. So I hope that it's not a problem that you have to worry about. It's not something that's making me worry because obviously he's number 3 in my rankings. So it's something that I'm hoping he can just clean up on the next level. But I really like the skill set he brings to the game, and I think he's pretty perfectly set for today's NFL and gaining separation on the next level.
Yeah, you know, he's my wide receiver 4. I would say that he's actually elevated his status a little bit because I think people were kind of down on him, and then his measurables have looked good. People are kind of coming back. The thing that I worry about with Minnesota, and I talked about this with Felix Sharp a long time ago on one of our first podcasts we talked about, is that, you know, Minnesota runs a lot of those like run pass options and the first, second throwing windows that they run, and they really target that safety, and he runs out of that slot. Bateman kind of does. So I know some people have questioned whether or not he's like a zone beater or if he's really like a real kind of can beat the coverage and find the open spots. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think that Minnesota's scheme does well for his receivers. I think the Tyler Johnson thing was weird because he didn't really I can't really blame Johnson because where he fell, he had a terrible landing spot. But with Bateman, you know, could he maybe fit in that? I think he's very good. The catch point is what excites me the most about Bateman. He gets up 50-50 balls. He creates that separation when he's in contested coverage. He's not very I don't want to say he's not fast. He's okay. He's not going to – he had a great 40, and but I don't know what the hell to do with 40s anymore. But he did look like he can. He's not a true burner, but he creates separation. I'm coming around a little bit on Bateman. I wasn't as high on Bateman. I think he was like my 6 or 7 coming into the process after watching it. But I do think he can fit. Now, is he going to be a wide receiver 1? Do you think he could maybe fall in that? Or do you think he's at a wide receiver 2? Is that his ceiling?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, there's guys with his kind of size and his kind of skills, in my opinion, that do end up becoming wide receiver 1s in the right situations. You know, like a Stephon Diggs or like a Robert Woods or like something like that. So I don't necessarily think it's out of his range. I don't necessarily think it's out of his range of outcomes. You know what I mean?
That Robert Woods. I like that Robert Woods comp. That's actually, you know, I could see that. I mean, no, I can see that just from the fact that, like, he may not do everything that we think that, like, oh my God, a wide receiver 1 does. But Robert Woods is underrated. He's been underrated for his whole career. Of course. Bateman could fit into that category. I would just be worried if he falls like the Ravens. The Ravens have been mocked for that dude this whole year, and I'm just like, any receiver that goes to the Ravens, I'm just gonna like, damn it, I don't want that to happen.
They already killed my Miles Boykin shares. I mean, man, come on.
I know.
I'm still holding out hope for that guy, by the way. I don't care what anybody says.
He's killing my Marquise Brown shares. I still believe in you, Brown. You're my boy. Still believe in you. But I think, you know, with Bateman, I think he's okay. He's a solid guy. So in perspective for where he's going in rookie drafts, he's actually going as wide receiver 3. So he's going behind Devante Smith. But it's close. It's basically he's going the 112. Is that pretty fair? Or would you draft him before Smith? Obviously you would.
I would draft him before Smith, yeah. I think that there's more red flags in Smith's profile that worry me than Bateman, and I like to think of myself as a little bit of a safe drafter at times. You know what I mean? Like, I recognize that everything Devante Smith brings, and maybe the size might even be one of like the main things against him. So like that's why I do have him as high as I do. But yeah, I would definitely take Bateman before I took Devante Smith.
I could have talked about this before, but whatever. I'm a terrible host. Do you care about landing spot, or do you? Because I used to. And then AJ Brown screwed me because AJ Brown was my guy. I loved him to death. Then he went to Tennessee, and I was like, no, man, that's a terrible spot. Now he's making me look like a dumbass. And the only way I can get AJ Brown now is trade for him and overpay because I was an idiot back in the day. Do you care about landing spot? Do you think talent outweighs it, or is it in the middle?
I think it's somewhere in the middle, I guess. But I mean, in recent cases, we've had more so that you should just stick to the evaluation process. I mean, when you think about CEH going to Kansas City, and everybody propped him up to RB1 right away, or RB2 or whatever, and then everybody's dropping Swift because he goes to the Lions. Well, now I'm sitting here in startup drafts, and Swift is going like almost a second or third RB off the board. I think in the draft we just did, he was like the third or fourth running back off the board. So I mean, it just goes to show that maybe you should stick to your process a little more. But I mean, I'm sure we're going to get more examples of that the landing spot was perfect for the guy. I mean, in Justin Jefferson's case, was the landing spot perfect with the Minnesota Vikings? A big opening there for him where it helped. And then another case where Rieger kind of walked into an open vacated spot and nothing really happened with him. You know what I mean? Or Henry Ruggs walked into some vacated production and there was nothing really there for him either. So I don't think that it's as important as people like to make it out to seem. I think it's part of the process. Everything is part of the process. But I think that the skill comes first.
Yeah, no, I've gone back and forth on that, right? Like, and I was a big don't draft CEH where he was going, and I was right about that. But I've also missed on some. We won't bring up the misses though. I want to sound smart. All right, who is your wide receiver 2? So I love this because this is my wide receiver 2. So we're going down together.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that he's perfect for today's NFL, and my number 2 wide receiver is going to be Jalen Waddle, and I know that his size isn't perfect, but I think he brings immediate value to any team that he's going to go to. I mean, whether it's going to be in the return game, whether it's going to be in the screen game, whether you need him in the slot, whether you need him outside, he's going to be able to do what you want him to do. He's going to be able to come to your team and have an instant impact. And like I said, I think he's perfectly suited for today's NFL with his speed. I mean, you look at the recent drafts of guys, like NFL is hunting for these guys. They're hunting for the next Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? Marquise Brown, Henry Ruggs, Mecole Hardman probably went higher than he should have went. You know, they're searching for the guy that's going to be the next guy. And Waddle's game, I think, is above these 3 guys. You know, I mean, I know you're a Marquise Brown truther. He's a good player. You know what I mean? But I love Waddle. I think Waddle is a step above him. I think he's crazy quick. To me, that's the one thing he brings. He brings that Tyreek Hill element to your team right away. I mean, he barely loses speed in and of his cuts. He explodes off the line. He hits his top speed quickly. He gains separation easily. You know, I even remember him running out routes where the guy's playing tight man coverage. He's coming out of the slot. I can't even remember what game it is. But the whole plan is to run an out. And he runs up, gives the guy outside leverage, fakes a post, lets the guy still have outside leverage, and then goes around him and to the outside and beats him outside before the guy can even get there. Like, that's the kind of speed he has, where even if you have leverage on him as a DB, he's gonna get what he needs with his speed. He's gonna like blow past you. Like, he really has that essentially easy speed that you just don't see a lot of players have. You know, and I hate that everyone's saying it because it makes it cliche, and I don't want to keep comparing guys to Tyreek Hill, you know what I mean? Yeah. But Jalen Waddle is definitely, in my opinion, the guy who's been the closest that I've evaluated over the past whatever amount of years. Like, he's been the closest thing to a Tyreek Hill in my opinion. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people are going to want to point to the lack of resume. I think we talked about it. You know, his raw production numbers aren't the greatest, right? But I think his resume does speak volumes when you look at his freshman production with the loaded wide receiver room that they had with Jerry Jeudy, Devante Smith, Henry Ruggs, and he still ends up second on the team in yards. And I mean, down year for reception in 2019, but we also got to see his prowess in the special teams game. You know, he returned 3 touchdowns. He had almost 600 yards or something like that of return yards. So I think that added to his profile. And then you had this year where he was even on pace to beat Devante Smith by the end of the season. I mean, maybe we're sitting here talking about Waddle as the Heisman if he stays healthy. You know what I mean? Like, who knows what would have happened? So I really think that his resume as a whole actually does speak a lot about volumes, and I think he's perfect for this NFL, and the size is not a concern to me because I know what I'm getting with Jalen Waddle. I know how I'm going to use him, and the size isn't part of his game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and he's got pretty good weight on him. Like he carries his weight well. He was my wide receiver 2. I wrote a big article before the season last year. He was my wide receiver 2, and he's staying my wide receiver 2. There's nothing that he didn't. He got hurt. You can't. Raw production's obviously going to take a hurt. He ran according to, I think it was the 101 score where they run their 40. He did run a 4.37 at that time, and that's probably where I think he's going to be. He is also, if you watch him, he has excellent eye discipline. The dude can catch everything. Like, he makes these catches, and he's got these just excellent catches outside of his body. He's got big catch radius. I think that he's one of the best kind of I would argue that he may have the best hands in this class. He's up there, top 3. He is that good at catching the ball. He's very good at catch techniques. His release is insane. I love his release.
Yeah.
His release is something when you're watching the tape. And I know that my analytics guys aren't going to see that. They don't look at that. They look at raw numbers or just numbers in general. His release is special, guys. Like, that's an NFL release. His acceleration, his route running, everything is there. I mean, everything is, to me, is there. And his ADP right now is just plain disrespectful. It is 13.4. So he's a wide receiver 4. So he's going to the second round. That is insane to me. You could realistically get Lawrence at 1 and then Waddle at the start of the second. That's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a dream outcome that you can walk away with. I mean, that's a disrespectful ADP for sure. I get it, I guess, because a lot of guys are still holding Devante Smith up there real high. I just can't do it with the risks. Even, I know you love Terrace Marshall, and he's creeping up a lot of boards. He's getting real hype. I just can't do it with the rawness I feel like I see on tape from him compared to some of the other guys in this class, especially like Waddle. And I just think that I would be taking Waddle before any other guy. He's my wide receiver too, so I'm going to be smashing after Jamar Chase is gone.
Yeah, I'm taking Waddle every time in that format. Like if I'm sitting there and Waddle's there with me, especially if you're going at the late first, because I don't think there's a running back worth it. I'm taking Waddle. Waddle's that guy at that point. And that's easy for me. But if you can find those late seconds right now, and I love that Marshall's kind of getting played up a little bit, because as much as I do like Marshall, I love Waddle more. So if Marshall will get played up and all my league mates out here, Marshall, who the hell is this Marshall guy? I'm going to take him. I'll just be sitting there like, yeah, thank you. I'll take Waddle. Like, because he could be. I think Waddle is going to be that weird Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill kind of wide receiver 1 that has all this potential and talent. And if he can find himself on a team, I don't really think there's a landing spot I hate for him, because I don't think the Ravens will take him because they have guys that just like him already. There are those guys. I mean, could you imagine a scenario where Waddle fell to the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they would end up taking him. I really would, because it does make you wonder though how much you would like it, because I mean, you essentially think that the production will be good, but then you still got Tyreek Hill there, you still got Kelsey anytime soon. And then are they still going to try to work Mccoy Hardman in somehow or something like that? No. It's so funny how the tide has turned on the poor guy. I mean, his profile had all those red flags already. You know what I mean? And people were taking him so high that year. You were right to be disappointed. You should have seen it.
Yeah, no, Mccoy Hardman is never going to be a thing. I get over the Hardman train. Demarcus Robinson is better than Mccoy Hardman. But no, I would say I don't think Waddle will go there because they're probably looking for a different profile receiver. But there are a lot of places for Waddle that I think make a lot of sense. I would even love him to go to the Dolphins. Like, let's say they make maybe they get somebody else at their 6, 18, maybe they grab him. Like, I would love to see him there. I love Waddle. I think he has all the profile. And I know that I see him all the time. These dumb tweets, there's no such thing as the next Tyreek Hill. Maybe not, but he's as close damn well as we are probably going to see in the last few years, because I think that he has the physical capabilities and he's a damn good receiver. Like, he's not just fast. He's not just a returner. Like, this guy's a receiver plus.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with you.
Let's talk about our 1, because this guy is a monster. I love this dude, everything about him.
Yeah, I mean, my number 1 is obviously your number 1. It should be everybody's number 1. It's Jamar Chase from LSU. Had the monster season. in 2019 with 2,000 yards, 23 touchdowns, record-breaking season. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we've talked about him a lot before. We've always loved him for a long time. I mean, I think we've been on this journey together for a long time. We never wavered. I mean, like I was talking about earlier, he's really the only complete package at receiver that I see in this draft. I mean, he beat up on some of the top competition. The guys who went early in the draft or who are going to go early in the draft. We're talking about C.J. Henderson, A.J. Terrell, Trayvon Diggs, Patrick Surtain is going to go early in the draft. He beat up on these guys. Clearly has the athleticism. I don't know why everybody was questioning it. I saw people saying that he was going to be a 4.56 athlete. I'm going to laugh in everybody's face when he runs a 4.6. It's like, man, he's freaking running a 4.4. He's so fast. What are you talking about? Like, he has the huge vertical. He's got the huge broad jump. I mean, those are the numbers that I love to see that I was talking about earlier, that he's got that explosion. He's got that aggression, and there's not really a lot of things that we can poke in Jamar Chase's game. And there's not a lot that hasn't been said out there already. If I'm going to poke one thing, and it's just for the sake of talking about it, if there's one thing that I want to poke at with Jamar Chase, is sometimes it's his physicality, and specifically at the line. I think it comes from him trusting his ability. Don't mind my cat. I think it comes from his ability. His trust in his physique and his play strength. He lets defenders engage with him sometimes. He lets guys get hands on him, and he even initiates the contact himself sometimes. And I think it is part of his arsenal. It's a way that he gains separation. So I do wonder how that's going to work at the next level. Sometimes there's plenty of other times that he releases cleanly without the physicality, without all that. He is physical at the catch point too. So if you got to wonder if they're going to watch that a little more closely on the NFL level, depending on how physical he's being out there. But I mean, I'm nitpicking here. I'm just trying to find something for us to kind of debate about. I mean, to me, he's my wide receiver 1, and in non-super flex formats, I'm taking this guy 1.1 in every dynasty draft.
No, I agree. I was going to say that. He's my 101 in non-super flex, and he's my 103 in super flex. If I don't need a quarterback, and I don't need one of the two ties, whether you want Fields or Wilson at that spot, I don't really care. I'm taking Chase at 3 because Chase is going to last longer in my dynasty and produce more than Najee Harris. Because Najee Harris, I look at as a 2 to 3 year guy, and then after that, because of his age, I'm getting rid of him. Jamar Chase could be legitimately your wide receiver 1 for 6 years. 7 years. Yeah, he's absolutely that good. I went on over the summer last year and talked about he's the best prospect I've seen since Julio at the position, and I haven't changed that. Like, to me, I'm not saying he's going to be Julio, but I say that as a prospect, this dude he looks like Anquan Bolden, like Steve Smith put together. Like,
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. It's the physicality. And everything else with it. I totally agree with you there.
And he's got that intangibles. He's got that thing that you when as a coach, as someone who I've coached these kids, you see it. He's going to win. He has incredible. I'm glad you brought that up about how he lets him kind of get close to them. He does an amazing job with his hands at the catch point. I've watched the way he uses his body. It's almost like basketball. As a basketball coach, I see him boxing these guys out. He creates that separation with his hips and his strength under his just his strength underneath, and just his legs, his thighs, the way he kind of manipulates defenders. I love his game. I can't wait to watch. I missed watching him play football. So, like, to me, I just want to see him out there. I don't know the hate. I don't understand the hate. I know Preston Williams is a really good friend of mine. We're going to do a podcast together. He says that Bateman's his wide receiver 1, that he thinks he's a better wide receiver than Jamar Chase. I see a lot of people that have Bateman ahead of Chase, which I don't know why. When they say it to me and they say, oh, well, he hits these measurables. Well, so does Chase by more. Everything that Chase has done equals what Bateman has done. A dominator rating, breakout rating, breakout age, even all those different perspectives that we think about, Chase does. Chase is that guy. And if you don't take him and you take Bateman, that just hurts your ceiling for a player, in my opinion, because Chase is the guy.
Yeah, he is the guy. He's the guy he's the only complete package at wide receiver in this class. He's the only guy who's going to walk in from day one and be able to win on the outside against NFL corners immediately. He's going to step in right away and be able to handle it. And I even have a little story about Jamar and how he's kind of like my guy too. Like you were saying that he was kind of your favorite prospect that you've seen. And I was actually lucky enough 2 years ago, before he actually broke out in this season, that I was taking a look at LSU wide receivers. I was trying to see who maybe had the potential to break out. All the guys were looking at, and I had looked at a little bit of Jamar Chase tape. I looked at a little bit of his film. There wasn't much of it. The high school, he had a couple catches, I think, in his freshman year, where I think he only had like close to 300 yards or something. But but it was enough for me that I bought into him, and I bought into the refinement that I thought I saw on film. I thought I saw like a pretty complete wide receiver. So you know what, I was like, you know what, Devy depleted 4th round pick, only 5 rounds in the draft. It was like 4th year into the draft. I'm gonna throw a pick at this guy and just see what happens, you know. And then like boom, he just starts going off, you know, all season long. And it's funny that you mentioned Julio Jones, right? Because here I am thinking, okay, so I'm mid-season now. I'm in a playoff push. Okay, I'm close. I think one more piece is going to put me over the edge, right?
Yeah.
So a guy comes to me and he goes, yeah, hey, Jamar Chase doing pretty good. I'll throw you Julio Jones for Jamar Chase. And I mean, 2 years ago, I still figure Julio had 3 years in the bank and maybe he's going to help me win, whatever. Jamar Chase, I was still waiting 2 years. So I was like, sure, let's do it, man. Like I'm on board. So I took Julio. And I still regret it to this day. You know, and it's just funny that you brought it up, that you brought that connection with them up, and it's like they're forever intertwined for me, because I just feel like I smashed the draft pick, and then I ended up trading him away before I even got to enjoy it.
You gotta love Devy. This is why sometimes you get stuck, and sometimes, you know, like you just have those guys. But and damn, Julio's been injured. I think he still could have a good year this year. But yeah, Jamar, you know. I think he's the guy. I'm excited to see where he goes, where he lands. I don't want him to go to the Lions. That's like the kind of the one spot I just don't want him to go. But even if he did go there, I think he's the wide receiver 1. He's gonna get all the targets. So,
see, but I gotta ask, why don't you like the Lions so much? I mean, I understand Goff goes there; it's not Stafford anymore. But again, Kenny Golladay was putting up numbers too with other guys at quarterback and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if it's a team we think might spend time down more than they are up.
Yeah.
Don't you kind of feel like maybe like Goff isn't a horrible quarterback? I guess he's not the greatest quarterback, but if he can get the ball in Jamar Chase's hands, that's all he really needs. So sometimes I like the wide receivers on bad teams who can kind of put up yards, you know. In garbage time or whatever.
Corey, I just hate Jared Goff. I've hated Jared Goff. You could ask everybody for like the last 5 years, but even the last 2 years, I was out on him last year, this year going into it. My buddy Nick from PTW, he's been a big Jared Goff guy, and I told him on his pod before that, I was like, that guy's terrible. And so for me, I think it's a Jared Goff mindset, but you could produce those wide receiver 1 numbers because he's going to get the targets, right? Hawkinson's I like Hawk, but he's an overrated asset. I think that he is limited very athletically. So when you see what Jamar can bring, you got to get the targets. I just think I have this Goff mindset. It's just this Goff bias. It's not necessarily the landing spot I don't like. I do think they'll run a little bit more with Swift and those guys being there. But no, I agree. there. Well, all right, let's go through some rapid fire questions real quick. And just about the class. If you had to pick a bust from this class, who do you think it would be? And it could be either your top 5 or anybody.
All right. I know the easy answer here is to cop out with Kadarius Toney. I'm not going to go there. Everybody and their sister doesn't like Kadarius Toney, so I'm not going to go there. For the sake of being a little spicy and adding a little flavor here, okay, I'm going to go with a guy that I have in my top 10, but I think has the highest risk profile. And this is even more than Devante Smith, okay? I think I'm going to piss some guys off when I say this, but it's going to be Rondale Moore, okay? And he's an undersized player. A lot of his passes were schemed short. He wasn't someone who excelled down the field. And then he dealt with injuries for the last 2 years where it kind of hit the stereotype on the head where we worry about small guys and injuries sometimes. And I know there's a lot of people want to point to all these different theories that you don't have to worry about it and this and this. But I mean, at the same time, black and white, you look at this thing on black and white. It doesn't seem like the NFL likes him as much as NFL draft Twitter does either. So I wonder how he's going to be on the next level. Is he just going to be a gadget guy? Is he going to be Tavon Austin, or is he going to be somebody who can become a wide receiver 1 for our dynasty teams or a wide receiver 2? I'm concerned about it overall with Rondale Moore.
No, I think that's a fair concern. Did you see player profile put Ant-Man as his picture today because it has some
yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
that was pretty funny. I think I'm worried about him. 5'7", man. That's not. I mean, that's me. Like that's not big at all. I worry about that. I do think that he was limited in his route tree. He did have those injuries. Now he's a freak. But
there's no denying that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an athletic freak. But I agree. I think he's more Tavon Austin than what we like a Percy Harvin. Like I always kind of comped him to Percy Harvin, just a little smaller. But I think he's more towards that end. But I think his ADP is actually kind of shifted to where it's pretty. Unless there's a big Rondale Moore fan, it's not outrageous. But I could see him being a bust. No, I think that's fair. I think that's a perfectly fair answer there. Who are 2 biggest sleepers of the class, or and any of them can work here? Who are 2 guys that like you're okay with?
So I went pretty deep. I'm looking at day 3 guys, right? Guys who I think could surprise. I mean, everybody has sleepers out there, so I'm trying to find some guys who are maybe not talked about as much. And I'm going to go with UAB's Austin Watkins.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Arizona State's Frank Darby. Now, I know like Watkins is a guy who checks a lot of boxes. He checks the analytical boxes. He checks the production boxes. Checks the measurement boxes. And he didn't get a ton of love playing at the lower competition. But he's a great hands catcher. He can run some great routes. Got pretty decent speed. He tested the 4.52 at his pro day. I think was yesterday. Pretty stout at 208 pounds. 6'2", and his explosion numbers weren't the greatest. Of course, I mean, I think he jumped like a 32-inch vertical. I think his broad was under 10 feet. So though that part obviously is going to worry me, but I think I like a little bit what I see on tape. So he's going to be a sleeper for me to watch. And then Darby is a guy who I kind of expected a bigger 2020 from. Obviously, they're producing a lot of good wide receivers there. With obviously, well, your definition of good, I guess, with Nikhil Harry or whatever. But Brandon Ayuk came from there, and then and that's where Darby really caught my eye, was playing with Ayuk in 19. He showed some exceptional ball tracking down the field. He had a penchant for big plays. Unfortunately, COVID had different plans for Arizona State this year, and they only played 4 games. So we really didn't get to see a lot of Darby. And then also they had a lot of turnover on the roster. It was a young team. And they were still kind of figuring things out or whatever. So we didn't get to see a ton of Darby, but I think he tested fairly decently. I don't have his testing numbers on me right here. I thought I did, but yeah, he's going to be a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on, just to see if he goes somewhere that I can kind of see a fit,
Yeah, no, I think Brandon's a very big Darby guy. He always talks about him from Debbie Dashboard. He's 6 foot. He did measure in at 200 pounds. I do like his wingspan, his hands. Everything is there. It's hard to judge anybody from Arizona State. They had a terrible year this year with COVID. They got wiped out. Like 30, 40 people got it or something. It was crazy. So, no, I like that Darby call. I want to go through a couple guys, and not all of them, but there's a couple guys that either I like or I don't necessarily like, but a lot of people do. This was a big thing today or yesterday. Seth Williams is now younger than we thought. All of a sudden, like hey, look at his age out here. What is your opinion of Seth? Auburn kid. He played with one of the worst quarterbacks in college football, Bo Nix. What are your opinions of him?
I think Seth is an interesting case overall. I didn't love him at his Devy value, because I think in Devy drafts and startups he was going late round 1 or early round 2. I mean, that was just way too high for me for the player that I saw on tape. But I've actually come to terms with his rookie ADP. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times he's hitting the 3rd round or whatever, and to me that's an acceptable cost I can take on the risk on some of the things that I see. But now, like you said, Bo Nix didn't do him any favors. I mean, and not at all. The balls were all over the place. He actually had a penchant for making great adjustments on the ball because of Bo Nix. You know what I mean? We saw a couple circus catches. We saw some good stuff. But I mean, I talked about it earlier. He did have quite a few drops, and quite a few drops that weren't necessarily Bo Nix's fault. I mean, hitting him right square in the hands, which tends to bother me. He's not the greatest separation gainer. A lot of his stuff is tightly contested. Guys are in his hip pocket. That's not what the NFL wants anymore. If we're looking at guys like Kelvin Harmon or whatever, and then, or even if I saw somebody was comparing him to Cortland Sutton on my timeline lately, and it's like, Cortland Sutton ran like a 6.6 3-cone. I mean, the guy can gain separation at that size easily. I think Seth Williams ran like a 7.2 3-cone or a high 4.5 shuttle. So, I mean, and that shows up on the tape. I think he looks lethargic in his routes. I don't think he gained separation super well. So I mean, I'm going to give him a win on the contested catches, the hands, the adjustments in the air. I think that's obviously where he's going to excel. And at his price, I'm more accepting of it, but I don't think I'm going to end up with a lot of Seth Williams shares.
Yeah, Seth, you mentioned his drops. I think there was some inconsistency with his play and his effort. He does not hit the intangible. He does not have that intangible, because I just think he looked disinterested out there, and that worries me. Especially with receivers. I know that he had a terrible situation, but sometimes you got to elevate yourself and rise above those kind of situations. It's hard. I know they're 20-year-old kids, and I sound like a crotchety old 32-year-old man here, but I would say that he's got to have those intangibles at some point. You got to get those intangibles in there. A couple other guys, I'll be very quick here. Isaiah McCoy is someone I love from Kent State, but he had a terrible pro day. He was someone I thought Isaiah McCoy from Kent State was going to be, his career. Yeah, he had 1,700 yards, 16 touchdowns. create separation, good hands. Do you think he finds a role? He might go undrafted. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. Unfortunately, I think he's looking at a day three late capital. Yeah, I didn't pay too much attention to McCoy until I actually saw a tweet of yours. I can't remember how long ago it was, but you actually had pointed him out. Yeah, but I remember I think you had him listed at 6'3", 210, which was a little different from where he ended up coming in today. But at the same time, I mean, and so I looked into him a little bit more. He did have some incredible efficiency. I think he turned almost 25% of his catches into touchdowns this year, which was pretty big. He's an early declare, which obviously we like to see. The 40 time obviously isn't going to boost his stock at all. I think my reports here have that he was pushing over 4.6, at least up from some of the numbers that I saw out there. 4.62, 4.6, 4.58. So he's around that area or something like that. And again, sub 30-inch vertical, sub 30-inch, not even 30, not even above 30. Like it was 29.5.
It wasn't great, Corey.
No, it wasn't great. A 9-foot flat broad. I mean, it's tough to see. But here's where I saw a little bit of a comparison because I like to make comparisons. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Preston Williams. Okay, another guy who tested pretty poorly across the board, vertical, 40 time, everything like that. But I did kind of find that he made plays the same way. Like everybody thought Preston Williams was going to test better than he did. And when you watch Isaiah McCoy, he does look like he's a deep threat. He is a pretty big burner out there. He's got pretty good play strength. So yeah, I expected him to test better. But I mean, this testing probably does put a cap on his ceiling where he's going to go. Might be UDFA. I mean, he's going to fall into maybe. I mean, I probably like a guy like Warren Jackson a little bit better, who's probably in a similar build, but maybe it's a little bit more fluid. He's not a guy that I'm definitely watching super closely, but I see what you saw in him.
Yeah, the testing. When I saw his pro day numbers, I cried inside because I was like, if he could have ran like a 4.5, sub 4.5, I thought maybe he would be there. But that vertical scared me. I think that he does have a intangible where he plays super hard. I think he could make a roster. So I think that he can find himself where he competes for a roster spot. But the wide receiver position, there's so many wide receivers. And so he's going to have to find himself in a spot. I actually think maybe if he went undrafted and he could pick a free agency, maybe he can find a better landing spot for himself. Maybe that would work. But, I'm depressed now. All right. Well, hey, we hit this hour long. That's kind of where we want to go. I appreciate you coming on, man. I mean, you dropped a lot of knowledge, and I've been wanting to kind of connect with you for a while now. I know it's hard, dads, and we got tons of things going on. Why don't you tell our listeners, again, where they could find you? Obviously, that's a big one for us. Make sure they can get there. I'll put your Twitter up so that we know. But also just in general, maybe what you got coming out. Is there something that you're working on that you're excited about? You're just ready for the draft, or how's that going?
Yeah, so I mean, you guys can find me at ff_guitarist. It's listed on the screen there. My DMs are always open. I love talking analysts with prospects with guys, with other analysts out there. We're all in this together. None of us are super professional here. You know what I mean? I love just shooting the shit with guys and talking prospects. You can find my article work at Breakout Finder. I have been a little bit lax on that, but I am cooking up a piece that I'm pretty excited to get out, which is a series that I've done. I did one last year where actually I profiled or identified Treylon Burke last year, which I was pretty proud of before he broke out last year. So if you were following Breakout Finder last year and following me, you would have actually had Treylon Burke on your rosters like I have on a couple of my rosters at like a 10th round price, which was amazing. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. So I got more cooking up for you. That one's going to come soon. And obviously, you can catch me over at the Devy Dashboard with Brandon Lejeune. Always up there chatting, doing mock drafts with the guys, giving them my opinions on trades. I'm starting to make more appearances on podcasts. I'm trying to get myself out there a little bit. So I appreciate you having me on, Kev.
Yeah.
It was an awesome time chatting it up with you. And I'm just looking forward to getting the 2021 class finished with.
Hey, I can confirm. Corey will listen. Before I even was anybody, I would send him messages to talk about prospects, and he would send me back. He would reply. Not everybody does that. Trust me, in this space. There's people that you send messages to, and that just gets lost or something. So, but he definitely will do that. I wish I was listening about Burks. Instead, I got Trey Knox on my team, damn it. So I screwed that up somewhere down the line. I thought Knox would be that guy, but it's Burks. So appreciate you coming on. Everybody out there, if you listen on the pod, remember, hey, rate and subscribe. subscribe, please. Definitely rate. Tell us how we're doing. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you guys. And we'll see you guys next. On our next edition, we're breaking down quarterbacks. I got Nick Whalen from Dynasty Nerds and these guys coming on. He's going to be talking about quarterback prospects, and we're going to be talking about that. So be on the lookout for that. We appreciate you guys. Have a good night.
Take it easy.
Did you get all that? If not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.